You're listening to the Sonic Ninjas podcast. Follow us on Instagram at the Sonic Ninjas and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Sonic Ninjas.
All right. We are live again on Facebook. How you doing there, Bradley Dean?
What's up, everybody on Facebook land? I'm good. How about you, Eddie Kaipo?
Good, man. Good. Let me turn you up a little bit, and then you had me a little nervous for a moment. I'm not gonna lie. Not to put you out on, not to call you out in front of everybody.
Eddie was about to have a heart attack.
I was about to have a heart attack because, man, he was like, hold on, man, I'm almost there. I'm having a little dinner. I'll be ready in a second. And it's like, we're live in 5 minutes, dude. What are you doing? Can we check? Make sure Zoom is working? Make sure there are no issues? Like, yeah, I'll be right there. I guess you trust me that much.
What, you wouldn't want me to fall over in the middle of a good story?
No, I would not want that at all. I would want you to be, in full capacity. Yes, sir. Before I forget, the music that you heard earlier is by a good friend, Jeff Subro. He's the guitar player for Enrique Iglesias, and that's the music from his project, Patrito. So thank you, Jeff, for letting us use your music. And while we do this Sonic Ninjas episode 4.
I love that, Jeff.
Isn't it pretty cool? He does really cool stuff, man. It's everything that we're working on. There's a new mix that I just finished that I'm probably going to start using also for episode 5, maybe. Who knows?
Didn't ask me to play bass.
He didn't ask you. You know what? He played some of it.
Yeah, well.
You should.
Come on, Jeff.
Yeah, bust his balls. You should.
Get this 12 string out and lay some bass tracks down for you, buddy.
You know what I'm saying?
And then I'll turn your guitar up even louder the next time we do a live show.
Oh, so it's like that.
Oh, you know.
I said even louder. You know how it is. Oh, we got a few people joining us. Let's give them a second to get a few more, hopefully. Leonardo's there, Bruce, we got VJ, Shirley, Brad Divins joined too. Were you adding? See, I was counting you as one of them.
Why did you add me? That's my Aunt Shirley.
Yeah. No, but you joined too, apparently. That's good. So now we have one more person watching, including you. So if I join, then we'll have 10.
I open up the window so I can see the questions.
Yeah, I know. That's where we are. So I was watching you earlier. You were doing this Zoom, get together or like round table, if you will, with some really cool people, mixers, and it was part of an Eventide event or something like that. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Who's also the bass player for Cyndi Lauper. That's how I met him. He's
right
one that orchestrated the thing and asked me if I would do it. And of course, it's all about in the box mixing. And of course, all the guys that I'm on the Zoom call with are all hotshot record mixers, and here I am, front of house guy. I mixed a few things, but it was still cool to do. I was glad that he asked me.
Yeah, I was watching. It was pretty cool, man. Everybody, with what we do is, I always like the fact that everybody has their own view on things. We don't all have to agree on everything, but we all have a different way of accomplishing things. Everybody was sharing what they use on Mixbuzz and on one of their mixes, and how do they approach mixing things, or how what do they ask their clients when to send them the files. What the protocol was for each of them, including yourself, and when you receive a file before you mix it. All those things that come in play that are very important, I think, with what we do, to save us time and to also make us focus more on mixing instead of just fixing things, organizing tracks, and
Exactly. Spend the time mixing the tracks.
Yeah, and on focusing on the music. One thing that you guys brought up that was really cool and that I'm a fan of is templates.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really cool, very useful for everybody.
Very. You encouraged me to make a template.
I did, and I know you have one now, and I think, and it always evolves because we always keep trying different things, right? We alter our templates.
Exactly.
I just think it's pretty cool because it allows us to save time. And one of the guys, I don't know if it was JJ, right, or who said it's like having an assistant but in the computer, because now you don't have to wait for everything to be set. You just have your template, just go and you just assign drums to your drum bus, bass to your bass bus, and then all of a sudden everything starts becoming a mix, you know?
And you're like 90% of the way there.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, you know, that's what I do. I mean, I've been able lately, at least in the last few years, to mix songs fairly quickly and still keep my clients happy. And you know, it's just another way of doing it. I used to be the kind of guy who would, no, I have to start from scratch every song. And I grew out of that pretty quickly because there's no need to, you know?
Right. We spent enough times in clubs starting from scratch.
Yeah. I think that
Every day.
Oh, remember those days though?
I remember those days. I remember them well. And you know what? When I look back on it, it's kind of how you really hone your chops doing that. Walk into a venue and dial a mix in what, you know,
just a few
an
minutes.
hour. And then the band gets on stage and does a sound check. And
yeah. And then you're eyeballing it too. A lot of times we just eyeball it because there's no time to do anything.
yeah.
No virtual sound check.
No, one day you're on a Midas, the next day you're on an SSL, the next day you're on a Soundcraft. It's like, oh, what do I got today? Okay, cool. Line them up and let's go at it.
Yeah, but you know, there was something about that I think prepared us very well to get to the point that we are now. I think I don't take any of that as something that was not beneficial. I think it was beneficial all the way. You know.
Yeah.
I just heard a beep. Was that you?
It was me. I don't know why that is, because I thought I turned it off. But, you know, I'm not very smart when it comes to these things.
Neither am I. I gotta say,
well.
for all those companies that do this, you know, streaming and, you know, voice, you know, chats and video chat, all this stuff, man. We can mix and we can do shows and and take care of like thousands of people and all this demanding artists, and then we can barely get Zoom up and running. It blows my mind sometimes that, you know, I consider myself someone who's fairly qualified to troubleshoot things, and when I put my mind to, you know, to something, I'm gonna do it. But man, something as simple as Zoom almost made me quit. And then Zoom, and then you got OBS, and you got, you know, I'm learning a little bit of graphic, like whatever, you know, it's like, it's just to do anything. It's so more complicated than what we do seems like.
Yeah, everything went from live to streaming.
Yeah.
Matter of days.
And I know it's been done before. It's just maybe we're more aware of it because now we have to do it, or we want to do this to share things with people and everything. But man, I wish there was a platform that was more like specialized for that the audio is high quality audio, and that video is easy, that it recognizes your camera, and that you do an upgrade and it doesn't stop recognizing your camera, like things like that. Like Brad was saying earlier, I was about to have a heart attack. We're about to go live, and now Zoom wasn't recognizing my camera because they forced you to do an upgrade, and I'm like freaking out trying to get it up and running for you guys. But anyway, let's just say a couple hellos. Oh, wow, my mom joined. Mom, you're going to be bored. I'm going to warn you now. But I love you for joining. Thank you. We got Dan and Christian Hogan. Travis Shirley joined too.
Oh, wow. Travis Shirley.
He just wants to hear us talk about plugins.
Yeah.
Oh, Siri. Hey, Siri. I love it.
Hoppy's here.
Oh, Hoppy's, yeah. Then we got Juan Felipe. Stanley's watching.
You know, Hoppy used to mix my band. He mixed us a couple of times.
Did you kick monitors with him too? Were you
Front of house.
Oh,
he was far away.
Oh, he was far away.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing. I didn't have to worry about him.
It was the other guy.
It was that other guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that other guy.
You warned me about that. One of these days, in one of these episodes, we should play. There's an interview of yours that I really want to play for people to see. When you start demanding your mirror, and you know,
You just leave that buried away.
we just put it under the rug.
Old stuff. Don't worry about
Don't
that.
talk about it.
No.
We have to talk about that at some point. Because, dude,
know-
you were like a star. This people, I've witnessed this, by the way. For those who don't know this, what was the name of your band? Because you told me last time I completely mispronounced it.
Rothschild.
Rothschild. Okay. Okay, so Brad is mixing from the house for Enrique Iglesias, right? He's my partner in crime, my brother in arms. And I've seen people come over while we're on tour, people who are metalheads, rockers, that nowhere in a million years will go see an Enrique show because it's not their style of music. And they come with their CDs or cassettes or whatever, because CDs, I guess, mostly photos.
Yeah.
And they come to meet Brad. And they're waiting patiently to meet him, or they somehow make some kind of appointment with you, and then you kind of bring him onto the bus. Remember that? I don't remember that guy's name, but he was very charming, very nice. And he had a bunch of CDs.
He did, and we sat there for like an hour, and I think you recorded the whole thing.
You know what? I hope I passed on those videos because that was on my other phone. But
Yeah, I think I have it. It was in Texas somewhere.
yeah, and you were signing. He brought like a bunch of stuff, and you were signing things, and he was
was
very
a-
excited. And he knew a bunch of your concerts, right? That he went to.
Yeah,
Do you remember his name?
I think his name is Matt.
Matt?
I think his name is Matt.
Yeah, it was a cool thing. I gotta say, I was very impressed and very proud to see that because I didn't know your band at the time because I guess when that was happening, probably wasn't around. I was in Peru, not in the U.S., or maybe not even born.
I was going to say you might have been in diapers. I don't know.
Maybe you're not that old.
That's okay.
It's okay, right? I don't
Go
know
with
why
it.
your microphone keeps cutting out, and I know it's not you. I don't know if I'm doing something here, but I don't think I'm doing anything. Everything seems normal here, but one of those things that happens over the interwebs.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but
Have you still been recording? I know you were recording saxophone for a band last week or something like that. You still doing that?
yeah, still in the midst of it.
When will you predict mixing? That's probably still far away, right?
A couple months away yet.
Oh yeah, that's
Still
cool.
got some. Going to lay down some keyboards and some background vocals and some more guitar parts, more sax.
So since we're talking now a little bit about, we kind of came back to the audio part a little bit. There's something that people have been asking since before, and is how do we approach dealing with vocalists on all areas, right? So I'll start by asking you, as we start hopefully getting questions from people watching, that how do you deal with, let's go with the technical aspect. What's your vocal chain usually when you do in front of house? Like, are there different ways that you try depending on the type of vocals? What's your approach, or what are you looking for usually, or what do you try to clean up?
Well, I think I'm going to start. I always go with a channel strip because I want that all-in-one thing. I want the compression, the expander, EQ, high and low pass, all in one strip. And then I'm generally going to use some sort of dynamic EQ after that, just to clean up, based on, proximity effect, just to take care of any, they get on the mic, they're off the mic, they're waving the mic around, they stick it in the monitors, whatever's going on, that dynamic EQ is going to take care of that. And then I'm just going to follow it up with some sort of compression, which is usually either 1176 or an LA2A.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of where I'm going to start every time. It's most likely going to be an SSL channel strip, and then this what is it, Sonox dynamic EQ, and then either 1176 or LA2A. And that's generally going to take me where I need to be. If I have the luxury of putting a tape plug in before that, then I'll go that way. If there's a lot of ambient noise going on, maybe I'll use the PSE to try and clean it up. I've had luck using the expander portion of the channel strip to do the same sort of thing. And then, of course, just ride the VCA.
Yeah, because at that point, we're not trying to completely mute it because that will just create really ugly noises and switching noises, like on and off. And we will
Exactly.
never be able to get rid of the audience noise anyways.
Yep.
So and what's your so you said what channel strip were you using? I'm showing a picture right now. So if you want to elaborate on the channel strips and
I think it's Universal Audio. There it is.
the SSL channel, right?
SSL 4K. Yep. And then, I mean, on these, I think this is, yeah, that's Enrique's strip. And it's also Vila from him. When I worked with them, I used the same strip with him. And then Shirley from Garbage, same thing with her. And yeah, the tape machine as well. I like the tape machine in the beginning, the A800, just to give it a little bit of saturation and a little bit of crunch. Put that old school vibe in there with the tape machine.
Yeah, I like that. And it doesn't, it actually, does it soften the transits a little bit? I would assume that it does, depending on the setting that you have it, right?
Takes the digital out of analog and makes it more analog.
Yeah.
You know, takes the digital out of it. Plus, I like to watch the wheels spin.
I should have put a video instead of
Right.
the actual photo, but yeah, I mean those are great plugins. I know I use the tape machine one, the Studer, in the studio a bit, and then of course the 1170 the blue 1176.
Yeah.
The SSL channel strips is a must have, of course. You know,
Do you have pictures of yours? What's your go-to
oh mine. Let's see.
vocal?
Let's see what mine is.
And why is my mic cutting out?
I don't know. It's funny because we got two engineers and we can't figure that out.
Now, the funny thing is, when I did the thing earlier on Zoom, it was
It
fine.
didn't. Yeah. I wonder if it's something in the settings that I have on my Zoom account, something, but I've been through all that for so long. It's like, all right, let me put my chain up there, I guess, to see what we got here. These are not in any particular order. These are just plugins that I like using. Of course, the SSL channel strip, and this is mostly because it's what I have live if I'm not traveling with my UAD stuff as well. You know, so SSL channel strip, the A600 is my active EQ, sort of like a multi-band compressor in a way, I guess. So these bands that you see here are not on a fixed cue. They're actually only responding on those frequencies if necessary. For the most part, they remain flat. Anything else was done with the SSL EQ. And then I got that MAC-DSP de-esser, so MAC-DSP A600 as well. The Omni channel, the Sheps Omni channel, which is pretty awesome. Saturation, EQ, de-essing, limiting. And you can put those in any order you want. So that's a great plugin.
You've got some presets on that too.
I do have some presets on that one. So if you guys own the Waves bundle or anything, or if you own this plugin in particular, you'll see that, you know, there's some presets that we have there. Then Empirical Labs, that's pretty awesome. It's like a distressor. It just has a very good quality for compressing vocals and just giving them that grit sound, you know. Maggie Q, I mean, that's Plugin Alliance. It's you add that airband and you're like,
Man, that is a great EQ. I love that EQ.
right?
Yes, the airband is fantastic.
And I like that air sound. I you know, maybe for some people it might be too bright, but I like giving that to, because I can get away with it since I'm not using wedges. So I like giving that sound to the artists in their in-ears or to band members. If something needs to have that air, or when the background singers are going to sing and they're going to breathe into it, I kind of want them to have that feeling of like almost like a studio mic. So I don't mind adding air into the in-ears. And because I'm using the PSM 1000s by Shure, I haven't had any issues with the high-end distorting when it transmits via, you know, the wireless. So no issues there. I know a lot of people worry about that part, but it's been very clean for me. And then the last one that I use is the DPR42, which is an emulation of the BSS compressor that also has a built-in de-esser and a limiter at the end of it. So it's that those are the ones that I play around with. Those are the ones that I use for the most part. And yeah, man, I mean, there's so many other tools as well. And every now and then when I'm assuming just like I do, you test some out and try different things and combine them in different ways. And depending on which vocal you're doing too. If it's a hard rock vocal, we might do something different. If it's like a pop vocal or it's someone who does ballads, right? I mean, is there anything that you would do drastic if it was more of a rock drummer, or you kind of your approach is the same? Or rock as a singer, I mean, or would you approach it the same?
No, I think my approach is going to be very similar because I'm a creature of habit, and I like to keep things simple. And it comes from the analog days when, like we were talking earlier, we walk into a venue and you had a Midas XL4 or a Heritage 3000 or a Yamaha 4K, and it's like, okay, what do I have to work with? And it's, to me, it was just EQ and compression. And so even when I got into the digital world, just because I had all those things available to me, I didn't really find it necessary to go that way, because a lot of times I'd find it didn't make it better. It just made it different. And it wasn't really what I was looking to do. And plus, when you're dealing with a live vocalist, that's, as predictable as they can be sometimes, there's times when they can be completely unpredictable. And you don't know if they're going to sing or smoke or drink or stick their microphone in the wedge.
Yeah.
They're irritated about something. And you just, at that point, less is more is a great philosophy, and ride the fader.
Yeah, we got to keep an eye on them. I mean, we talked about this before on I guess on the last episode. Or that whole set it and forget it thing doesn't jive with us either. So it's like we have to ride that fader. Yes, we have compressors. Yes, we have all these tools and stuff, and multi-band compression and everything. But we still got to watch it. We still got to keep an eye on it and keep our hands on the fader.
Yeah, because not all times is the live scenario the perfect scenario.
Yeah.
Aren't perfect, and it's a live show. I dealt with one singer in a band where I tried everything from I want to try this channel strip, and I'm going to try this outboard EQ, and let's try this outboard compressor, and let's try this microphone. And finally I realized that none of it mattered, because I didn't know how he was going to perform. So I just had to find something that I knew that I could have everywhere, and that would make sure that I could hear his vocal in the mix. And it really, at that point, wasn't about having the best gear. It's just a matter of making sure you could hear him.
Yeah.
Top of the music.
To get that message out, to make sure they can hear the lyrics. And
it would drive me crazy sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what to do to get this vocal out. And sometimes you just can't push the microphone closer to the guy's mouth.
Well, we were talking about that too. With the other day, I had another Zoom meeting where a bunch of engineers were talking about singers that just like to back away from their mic, just stay here. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, they're asking for more volume, and we're like, well, why don't you just get a little closer, And part of the conversation a lot was like the politics of it, how sensitive the subjects are. Some artists were like, no, this is how I sing. I've been singing like this forever, and I'm not changing it. We pay a lot of money, deal with it. Figure it out. And in many ways, they're right. Like, that's for us to figure out how to make that work. That's their style, and make it work. I used to work for Julio Iglesias, which is Enrique's dad, and his microphone is by his waist. Like, it's literally by his waist, and he makes it work. That's his vibe. That's what he does. And I'm not gonna lie, it was very challenging to do it. I was doing front of house at the time, but it's for us to figure it out. All these other singers that they were talking about, well, obviously we're not going to mention names, but sometimes they were just saying, they will come up with a suggestion, hey, maybe you should have the microphone a little closer to your mouth. And they were like, next. Like, sometimes they don't even bother. They don't even care. They're like, no. So that's the challenge, but that's what we're here for. We learn things, and one of the cool tricks that I remember that you did on your first day with us, which I always like to bring up because it's something that people ignore sometimes, especially when there's a runway or we have any kind of sensitive mic, which we did at the time. Is that low pass thing. A lot of people would think, oh, well, why would I want to cut all this range of high frequencies? Well, you're not going to use them. You're not going to perceive them, especially with a loud band. And what is that thing that you do that we all love so much?
It's low pass at 10K on the channel strip.
And that just gets rid of that feedback or that very high feedback or potential feedback on the runway.
Yeah. I mean, there's times I'll drop it down to 7 or 8K. Maybe I've gone down as low as 5 or 6, depending.
Yeah.
But in the scheme of things, you can still hear top end.
Of course, in the context of what the music is, right?
Yeah. That's it. You're just not going to hear any screeching feedback, which in the end of the day is what I'm after. No feedback.
Yeah. But you managed to make it sound still like it sounds like a vocal. Like it doesn't sound muffled. It doesn't sound, it sounds normal.
Yeah. Well, at 10K with a gradual slope like there is on the channel strip, you're still getting 12K and 14K in that mix.
Yeah.
But it's very tapered off.
I love that thing, and I think it works in all scenarios too. I do it every now and then on certain vocals or backing vocals to kind of clean up a little bit of the noise and the air around them, and then I just focus on giving them the air on their vocal instead of just having it all around their mix. Sometimes I can just trim that a little bit and then add it on their vocal just so they can hear themselves clearly.
Yep, exactly.
Let's see if there's any questions. Oh, actually, let me see. Yeah, Chris is saying he's gonna make a new template for sure. Then, hey guys, do either of you have artist presets that are available from any of these plugins? And I think we mentioned something earlier. Yeah, I have some on the Sheps Omni channel, on the BSS DPR. Both are waves, and then I also have on the there's a multi-band Mac DSP compressor that is pretty amazing, that allows you to change. It's like a mix rack, and you can change, like you can put on 1176 to just be your high mid band. You can put another SSL type compressor for your low mid band, and you can change it. It's a multi-band, but you can change the components of where you want it to be. So I have presets on that, which is pretty cool. What about you, Bradley Dean?
I have presets on I think in the SSL bundle from Waves, in the Omni channel, and also H Reverb. All of those are from Waves. And then I'm also working on presets for some of the Plugin Alliance stuff now as well, which it's probably going to be like Shadow Hills and I don't know, Digital V3 and probably some of the channel strips.
Our usual mix bus processing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but I've used your H Reverb ones, and those are pretty good, man. Your snare one, love it. Ryan John is here. Hey, Ryan, what's going on?
What's up, Ryan?
He's asking a question here. Let's see. What analog tools outside of the desk did you love to use when you were on an analog desk? Do you still use them? Go ahead, Bradley Dean.
Nope.
Nope.
I don't use anything other than what's with the console. And, I'm carrying the Universal Audio or the Soundcraft real-time rack. That's it.
Yeah.
I need to have everything that I can carry on a stick or an iLock or in that rack, and then get the S6 everywhere I go. And that's what I use. I don't think there was ever anything in the analog world that I used that I had to have all the time. It always, sure, it'd been great to carry a 480 all the time, but who's going to do that? Is it going to work every day? So no, there's really nothing.
So you're all digital all the time at this point, in the box.
Yep. And you know what? I like being in the box. I like knowing that everything is right there in front of me and there's no outboard gear to worry about. It's just all right there.
I agree. I like that.
the real-time rack works every single time you plug it in. So that thing is totally reliable.
I
about you?
like being in the box too. I think it's the consistency, especially for our artists, to be able to just maintain that consistency no matter where we go. You know, I mean, I don't know if it's nostalgia that makes me think, oh well, you know, I wish I had this analog thing, but you know what? Not really. I kind of feel that the benefits of going digital, of how we were able to automate all the plugins and in the console, and in our case, you know, we're in an Avid SXL and we're able to do everything we want there, and it's, for me, it's, I don't think I could go back. I think this is the way. I mean, I don't know, in my opinion, you know, I don't know how, it didn't matter how good we were back in the day, how quick we were changing presets and programming, making program changes, and I there was times where I used to redial the console on certain songs, completely change EQs and blah, 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 just like on a bunch of channels and besides levels and this and that, and then put it all back, and you get to a point that you can go as close as you can to where exactly where it was, but you know in your heart it was never exactly where it was. And now, you know, I can just do that with one button, and everything just goes boop, and then I just go boop, and it's back to normal, you know?
It's the luxury.
What's that?
It's the luxury of having everything right there.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, we always go back to this. It allows us to focus in the music, you know, and just make sure that we're mixing is right and the approach and everything. So I think that's pretty cool. Thanks, Ryan, for that question. That's pretty cool. Cesar Sogwe is in the house. What are your favorite plugins when you mix in the studio? Bradley Dean, since I'm asking the question on behalf of Caesar.
Okay, favorite plugins in the studio. Channel strips. I like Plugin Alliance. I like the Focusrite. I like the Lindell 80 series. And I like the SSL stuff. I like the Slate stuff. I use the, what's the reverb one by Slate? Some of the virtual bus compressors are good. I just picked up the rotary plugin from Eventide, and I was just experimenting with it earlier today. I put it on something and listened to it. That thing sounds killer. It emulates a Leslie cabinet.
Oh, nice.
So I can see me using that on something. McDSP, I guess he wants favorite plugins.
Yeah, you
Shadow
named a
Hill.
bunch. Name your top three. Name your top three.
My top three: Shadow Hills, the Focusrite channel strip, and the Digital V3 from Brainworks.
Yeah, I mean, we're really close. I mean,
I got more than that, but
yeah, I mean, and for me, I'm gonna bore people by answering the same because we're very similar, I guess, that way. Because Digital V3 is one of my favorites. I like the 33609, the Neve 33609.
I like that as well.
You know, all the SSL channel strips. Of course, the Omni channel is pretty awesome. So if I was to say three, I would say Omni channel, the ML4000 by MacDSP, and the Shadow Hills plugin alliance. I think those will be my top three for sure.
Okay, so I have a question for you.
Okay.
I told you to use the Focusrite on a recent mix you did.
Yeah.
What did you use it on, and what did you think?
I put it on all the drums, and this is for another song that I was mixing for Jeff, who is, you know, the music you heard at the beginning. I put it on all the drums, and I think I did guitars as well. It just blew my mind. Like, you know, normally we get used to certain things, and we just have our go-to things. And like I said earlier, with our templates, we don't want to waste time sometimes. But we've got nothing but time now. So I was like, you know, talking to you, and we're like, oh, we should try this. I'm trying. You already been using it. I'm like, let me try it out. Of course, like anything else that Plugin Alliance does, it blew my mind. I was like, wow, okay. So I definitely made some changes to my template now, of course, and they're included in there as well. So that particular channel strip is pretty good. I've never had an opportunity to work with the actual console, but man, if that's what the plugin sounds like, I can only imagine, because it sounds really good. It just, as soon as you move that knob, it's almost like it just feels right. Even though we're moving it with a mouse, I know it sounds almost ironic to say it that way, but it kind of you can kind of hear it as you're moving it very clearly,
Yep.
I don't know, I think it's great. Let's see. Salud de Peru, Jorge Ceballos, that's good. Oris Henry, he said one word, Engelbert. I don't know if you saw that probably already.
See that? 'Cause I when I worked with Jerry Harvey, he told me stories about Engelbert.
Yeah.
And they're very similar to your stories about Julio.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're definitely interesting characters. Like I've told you before, I never had bad experiences, but they were trial time for sure. There were like some interesting experiences that we went through, during that time. But it was another experience that I feel prepared me for many other artists to come after that. Like any other tough artist, like nobody scares me after working there. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things that it prepares you. Just another experience that we get to have.
Yep.
Here's a question that I guess could be for both of us from Stanley. Stanley Suarez, another great engineer, by the way. Stanley, for those who don't know him and are watching us, Stanley, makes his Juanes. I believe he's done Sepultura,
Megadeth. He did Devin Townsend as well.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is awesome. Anyway, what is your approach for quiet singers on the stage? Maybe I'll start that one. So
That one.
for me, a little bit of working with them as well, like the singers. Like you got to be able to talk to them and kind of try at least to come to consensus of where, how loud things should be and versus how loud everything around us should be as well. Because if it's a singer that seems really quiet and on top of that maybe backs away from the mic, then we can't have the band be incredibly loud. We have to kind of manage that as well. It's not just the singer. I think in order for us to help a singer, we kind of have to work with everybody, as well as from the house. Like if we had a quiet singer, I will probably, if I was working with Brad with a quiet singer, I'll probably discuss it with Brad and say, what can we do? Should we try to maybe run the PA maybe 2 or 3 to be quieter? And that might give me headroom to make sure he can hear himself and everybody can hear himself and whatever. We will find a way to make it still not jeopardize the show quality, keep the singer happy. Definitely working with a singer directly makes a big difference. If you have access to that, working with them directly, it just comes down to also keeping that control in volume. Not everything has to be screaming loud. If it's with in-ears, it makes it easier. And I usually start with a vocal where the peak will be, where the loudest should be. And then I kind of bring everybody else around it. And then, even though I'm writing the vocal to make sure that they can always be heard, they would always be heard, then I'm mixing the band around that singer, That way you're not fighting it. That way you're not blowing their ears out either. I think that's important to not keep bringing things up. Sometimes it's a matter of what can you turn down to make room for that vocal, Because they only tend to, from the in-ear point of view, from monitor's point of view, they tend to turn themselves up because the vocal might be loud enough, but everything else is just as loud. So in return, they just turn the pack a little more, and now everything's even louder. So sometimes it's a matter of just turning things down, panning things, making sure that middle is just for the lead, for the singer, That's from the monitor point of view. How would you deal with it maybe for front of house, Brad?
For front, A friend of mine was trying to tell me to disable the gate on my vocal, but there's no gate on it, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
exactly what's happening here. But I, it's really difficult to deal with a quiet singer, and I think you pretty much answered it. I mean, you have to first you have to talk with the singer. You have to, instill the confidence in them that you got their back. Maybe, try and encourage them to give you a little bit more, and mix the band around the vocalist, like you said. I mean, it comes down. I think even getting rid of all the instrumentation out of the center of the mix. Panning things out of the center so you can just leave room for the main vocal.
Yeah, I mean that's the best approach. Like making room for it,
Make room.
not trying to pile everything up on it, because then you'll lose. We'll lose that battle.
And sometimes you can't always have the pristine audio quality of that vocalist that you would like to have because you're trying to make it loud. Might find yourself, doing some unorthodox, EQing. Or I remember one singer I worked with, and he was very, very dynamic. And there were times where he would sing really quiet and the drummer's just pounding away and the band's just going. And sometimes I'd put a limiter on his vocal group or his vocal input just to try and push the vocal up more when he was quiet, and then do a lot of riding of the fader.
Yeah, or I used to do with Julio. I used to have, because he doesn't really like compression, and I guess I'm outing myself now, but I used to have a group that was wide open, and another group with just his voice that was completely squashed, and with the output really loud. So whenever he will get closer, which he will do every now and then the main mic, the regular one, the untouched mic, will be at the volume that he wanted it to be because he was controlling his volume. But then the other one was so compressed that it automatically would turn itself down, almost like ducking itself. But then when he will back away, then the regular group will just fade away automatically because he's far from the mic, and the other one will just kick in, and you can hear him even when the mic was far away. So it was something that worked for me, but it wasn't ideal, but it worked. It was one of those things we just had to try everything to try to keep that vocal on top. And this was a front of house, of course, but sometimes we just got to try what we could try.
Yeah, sometimes you do unorthodox things just to make the vocal get heard.
Let's see who else. Is there anything you're reading there that's catching your attention there, Bradley Dean?
There's a pretty big question here from Dan Kenny.
Yeah.
Just calibrate my room, had a big bump from 50 to 150 and a huge dip at 250 to 300. Do you guys have the ears to hear that naturally when in a new environment, or do you use something to feel out the room? Or does it not matter live because you are hearing what you are hearing in the same environment? No need for it to translate to another environment. Well, anytime there's apparent frequencies like those that are, there's a problem there, you can hear it right away. And you have to deal with it, I think, on a night-to-night basis because every room is different. The one thing I don't do is tailor my mix to the PA or to the room. I tailor the room or the PA to my mix. So I'm always going to deal with those problem frequencies, because if I don't, then my mix is not going to translate. How about you?
Same. Like answering to his question a little bit, we can identify those frequencies. Like we walk into a room and we listen to it, we go, oh yeah, there's a lot of this, there's a lot of that, right? We're going to need to take that out. And there are tools that we use like SMART or whatever to analyze the PA and create a certain curve. But the curve still, like Brad says, is done to the mix that we already know sounds a certain way. Because if we're going to start changing every input to match what the PA sounds like, if it has a bump, like you say, for example, like you said, 50 to 150, and then a dip at 250 and 300, and then we start changing all our inputs to that, we're going to end up with not a very great mix, in my opinion, I think, like Brad said, we tailored the PA. We changed those PA settings to make sure it matches the mix at that point. And you know what? Because it doesn't have to translate anywhere else, it needs to translate just at that venue at that point, which is why our point of reference will be his mix. So that way, wherever we go with his mix, we just adapt the PA for that room that day. Does that make sense? That's
Yeah, it makes sense.
right.
Yep.
So that's a good question. Okay, we were just talking with Dan. He was looking for speakers, and I go, hey, check out SonarWorks because that helped me a lot in my studio. And he goes, well, I'm getting this other program, which I don't want to make a mistake on the name, but I think it was from maybe IK Multimedia. They have sort of like a acoustic alignment program or something, and so he's that's probably why the question came about, because he was able to analyze it now and hear and see what the room is doing, right? So
Yep.
so yeah, I mean, the same way we do it in the studio, we do it live as well. We kind of try to EQ a little bit of this, knowing that now what we do in the channels will translate. Because what happened with me before, my room was a little messy, and that 150 to 200 for me, 100 to 200 was really messy. It was like muddy, and it was making me kind of EQ things not well. It was just my mixes were coming out a little brighter, and I was notching too much of certain things, and then I will take it to a place and it will translate, which is kind of what he's talking about. So once I got that program and I calibrated my speakers, like we will do a PA, now our mixes translate the proper way. Anyway, I'm ranting now, but let's see what else.
Okay. You're allowed to rant. It's your show.
Right? It's our show. It's funny how we call it a show. Let's see. Cesar, curious about reverbs being that you guys deal with natural ambience all the time. So how do you deal with reverbs because we do arenas and stuff like that? So that's a great question.
Well, my philosophy on reverb is all I want to do is I pretty much only put reverb on drums and maybe a little bit on vocals depending on the song. And on the drums, it's just going to be to maybe put them in a space and wetten them up a little bit. I don't really want to hear the reverb. I kind of like, because like you say, we're in some rooms are more lively than others, but I have a setting and it's actually H reverb. I think it's Snare 2 is the one I use all the time. And it's just puts a little bit of wetness on the drums. It's not anything too crazy. I don't think I've ever been in a room where I've really turned the drum reverb off. I might have turned the vocal reverb off because, the vocals are just carrying away. But I'm more of I like delay and a little bit of harmonizer and a tiniest bit of reverb on certain things. Like when Enrique's singing the ballads is when I'll favor some reverb. But you do have to tailor it to the venue.
Yeah, same on monitors. The room comes in play a little bit, but I can, as I mentioned before, I can get away with a little more because they're all wearing headphones or in-ears. I personally like to, I usually have two different reverbs on the drums, one for snare, one for the toms. And that changes also the length of those changes. If it's a ballad, then I make them a little longer and shorter, whatever, depending on what the song is. If it's a fast tempo, I shorten them. But I try, because they're wearing in-ears and because they're all plugged up, I try to give them a sense of space. So what they're hearing kind of reflects what they're seeing. Because if they're in an arena and they're everything's just bone dry, to me, because I've been able to be on stage as well, it would be boring. It would just be, and it wouldn't make sense because you see this big space and everything sounds dry.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. So now I don't have to go to the extreme because maybe for some musicians they find it distracting or they don't care or they want to hear really dry or drier in order to just kind of follow the beat or whatever. And that's a preference. At that point, as a monitor engineer, I got to do whatever they want and whatever they need. But in general, for the people who want a full mix, I usually try to tailor it in a way where they get a sense of space. Even if the reverb is not there for them to hear it, at least it creates a certain dimension, some kind of space in their in-ears. That's how I try to approach it, at least from the monitor's point of view. Either to create a space for them, or if it's an actual effect where you want it to sound like a nice big reverb, that's different because now it's part of the song. But otherwise, I just use it to create a certain space, so nothing's just dry. And there's times where a drummer could come in or a singer come in and say, "Oh, this sounds like there's a lot of reverb," and because of the way we're running things, pre-fader and sometimes or how we're feeding the reverbs, then I usually tell them, just wait till you're in context, just wait till everybody's playing and tell me if you still feel that it's a lot of reverb. And 99.9 times they say, you were right, leave it the way it is. So most of the changes that I make are always thinking in context, never just with that instrument by itself. So that's as far as reverbs go. Let's see. VJ was asking which Focusrite. It's the channel strip, right? Plug-in Alliance.
It's by Brainworks.
Brainworks.
Ryan actually answered. It's BX Console Focusrite SC.
Yes, that's the one.
Yep.
What else?
A few more questions here.
Yeah, go for it.
So Ryan O'John with another question here. Once your system is set up for you, how deep do you get into tailoring the PA to your taste? Is there something you trend to find fits your taste and mixes best? Yeah, I do tailor the PA for my taste, because if I tailor the PA, that when I listen to my reference music, which happens to be Pink Floyd, I know what those songs sound like, and when the PA represents that song sonically, then I know that I'm going to spin up my mix and it's going to be right there. So yeah, I always tailor the PA to my personal taste.
And with Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah,
which we talked about a lot on the last episode.
It has to sound, it has to be pleasing to my ear. I've had systems be tuned where, okay, it's tuned and it's right, but when I listen to it, it doesn't sound right to me. So I tend to do things to try and, smooth it out and make it to where I like the way it sounds because, I'm the one that's going to mix on it.
Here's another one from Ray Pullen. I guess this applies to monitors. So, how many live wedges, inner mixes, and what's on the drum mix console plugins? Is there a live and IAM mix on the drums? Okay. As far as inner mixes, we're running 24, and that includes band members, production, everybody, stage managers, techs, and everything.
You get paid by the mix, right?
Yeah, per fader, per snapshot. And on the drum mix, we basically have no wedges, no side fills. At least with Enrique, no wedges, no side fills. The drummer has a thumper that is it Dave Porter? Maybe is that the brand?
No, Porter and Davies, I think.
Porter Davis, right? Yeah,
Davis.
I had it backward. Okay, so Porter Davis. It's the green ones. Those are great. And so he just has a thumper. Every now and then, if for some reason we can't find one, but we normally travel with one, but if for some reason the gear didn't make it or something, I'll just give him a double 18 or something. But most of the time, no speakers, just the thumper and his mix. And his mix has, as far as plugins, I believe you're asking, mostly console, and then whatever the plugins are that I already have on the kit, which are probably SSL channel strips. On my main mix on everybody's in-ears is usually Shadow Hills, Fatso Digital V3, and I finish it with an ML4000. On some mixes, I have the CLA mix down, and the Digital V3 and the ML4000. So that just kind of gives it that sort of, mastered kind of mix sound, if you will. Try to kind of keep everything in check and glued together, more of a mix instead of things just poking through. Raul, what's going on? Raul Otto Arias, production manager for J Balvin's here as well. What's going on? Chris Holland, Drew Cagney. Man, we got a lot of people that came and visit us. Let's see.
We do. Hoppy has a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So, do I prefer to mix from dead center or off axis?
Go for it.
I will take off axis every time because the last place I want to be is where the subs are summing up. So it's always off axis for me. And the more off axis I am, then the more true I think the sub bass response for the whole entire room is, because now I'm not sitting in that hump. But obviously, I do try to work with the systems engineers to try and get that hump smoothed out so that the sub can be even all the way across the room, which sometimes isn't all that easy to do, but we do our best to make sure that it's even. But yeah, never in the center. And a lot of people don't understand. They're like, whoa, we set you up. We thought you wanted to be in the center. I'm like, no, you see that thrust right there, and you see the barricade where there's nobody? I don't want to sit where there's nobody. I'm going to sit over here and get out of where everything is summing up.
Yeah.
And it's just truer for me.
Yeah, because then you get that huge bump on low end, and then it kind of throws you off. And then it feels like if you move a little bit this way, it feels like you have no low end, but it's not true. That's because you got used to that sound.
Yeah.
VJ Kumar is asking, thoughts on a stereo monitor IEM mix to better separate and isolate vocals instruments? Yes, absolutely. 100% stereo. Even if you're not making a stereo mix, like a record mix or anything like that for your artist or for the musician, at least it gives you the opportunity to separate things. I know there's some artists, I know Pitbull does this very strongly, like his things are all the way left. Enrique does something like that too on some things where he wants everything to one side. But so that's a scenario where we're not doing a stereo mix per se, but it's you using it to isolate things. And then for the ones who want an actual stereo mix, then yeah, it helps you make that room, like we were saying earlier, make room for the vocal to be right in the middle. So you can have, if there's two guitar players, one on each side a little bit, not all the way panned, but maybe, 11 and 1 or 10 and 2. And then you can have some of the keyboards in stereo, and then back on vocal is penned, and then your vocal would always remain in the middle and have plenty of room to stand out. So yes, absolutely, stereo mixes on IEMs whenever possible. Let's see, Ryan John has another question here. Is there anything in particular that you do to blend electronic drums with live drums, or really any electronic playback element mixed into with similar live elements?
Nothing. I don't do anything really fancy with any of the electronic stuff or the track stuff. I mean, it's already pretty processed stuff coming from, stems. So the goal there is to blend everything together so that you can hear everything. And, there are electronic drums going on with the real drums at times. So I always want to make sure that if for any reason, whether the electronic drums would go out, the real drums are still there, or if the real drums will go out, electronic stuff is still there. You just want the balance to be, kind of 50-50. And obviously, if there's a song that's featuring the electronic drums more, then yeah, you're going to hear that a little bit more. But unless there's an issue with any of the electronic stuff, I tend to not treat it. It's just, it's going to get treated in the mix bus, but individual tracks aren't going to get treated. Drums are always treated. So it's just a matter of finding that right blend to where you hear everything.
Yeah, and same with any playback. I mean, it's just a matter of finding that musical balance, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Always about the music, my friend.
I mean, I never found it all that difficult when I'm handed, you know, I don't know, 4 to 6 stereo stems of tracks with electronic drums and loops and synths and all kinds of stuff. And then I've got the real instruments, the real drums, because to me, it's all part of the big picture. So I want to be able to hear all of it. It's just, I've never really had that issue with trying to figure out like where's things need to sit in the mix. I just want them to sit so I can hear everything.
Yeah, and that's something that monitors, at least for our approach or my approach when I'm doing monitors, is the same. Again, music, and just try to mix it where I don't want the monitor mix for someone in the in-ears to sound like a monitor mix. I kind of want it to sound like a mix, because when we used to do monitors before, when it was wedges and things, it was like, if there was a guitar player on stage right, his wedges, and he just wanted kick, snare, his guitar, and his vocal, because he was kind of hearing everything else from everywhere else. So that's all they needed to function. But if, now that we have, for the last many years now, in-ears, and artists and musicians are being more in tune with what they want because they spend a lot of time in the studio, then I think it's good to give them that sound and that blend, more of a musical blend. So if there's if there's tracks and then live instruments, you don't want to just hear the track and you just kind of want to have a blend of everything. Now again, from the house, you find the blend and you're working with that blend and you're doing what you do. Monitors, I've had cases where first time I'm working with a certain band or artist or whatever, and then I have everybody dialed or pre-dialed, and the drummer shows up and the tech before they're saying, "Oh my God, this guy's gonna be so happy. His mix sounds so good," and then the drummer shows up and goes, "Take everything out. Just leave the click track and the lead vocal." I'm like, "Yeah, but what about just leave the click track?" And we spent all this time dialing it up, fine tuning it, and it didn't matter because what they wanted was just click and the lead vocal. So at that point, we have to serve them. We have to make sure that we give them what they want for them to perform. At that point, it's not a matter of a blend there anymore. They just need to hear what they need to hear. So.
Yep.
All right, so that's it for questions for now. But so there was one thing I know we cover a little bit of effects as far as reverbs and things, and I know you mentioned delays. What's your usual go-to delay? Not necessarily a brand necessarily, but more like the type of delay. Do you do ping pongs, mono, stereo? What's your cup of tea?
I like a stereo delay, and I'm generally going to go with the quarter notes or half notes, depending on what's going on in the song, what kind of tail is happening. And maybe I'll high pass it a little bit. Sometimes I'll, put a bit of, harmonizer on the delay or distortion or just something to mix it up a little bit every now and then.
Yeah, to change the character a little bit of it, so it's not so plain, right?
Sometimes you can filter the delay, really hard filter it so it's a telephone effect kind of thing with the delay. I mean, I only need 4 effects to do a show: 2 reverbs, a delay, and a harmonizer. That's it. I don't need anything else. And you know what that comes from? That comes from the club days.
Yeah.
You didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Okay, I need drums for my reverb. I need reverb for my drums. I need another reverb for the vocals. Harmonizer's nice, and delay. That's it.
Yeah, that's all we needed at that time.
Yeah, and if you had something extra, then that's a bonus.
You have 4 comps, 4 gates. That's it.
Yeah. Sometimes you had 1 reverb and 1 delay. and no harmonizer.
Yeah, but we may do somehow. But
Yeah.
now we have too many tools, I guess, sometimes. But I guess in moderation, I guess everything's okay, as long as we're using it for the right reasons and with a purpose.
I don't know about you, but I don't find myself going overboard with things just because I have them.
No, I did at the beginning.
I could have 10 effects if I wanted to, 10 stereo effects returns, but I don't need them. So I don't, what's the bother with them?
Yeah, I don't, yeah, me neither. But I remember at the beginning of this whole thing with plugins and everything, you kind of, and once you discover that you can use them live, I was like, oh my God, let's just try it. And it was a mistake in retrospect, but it was something that we learned. We just got to figure it out.
You learned that you didn't need 8 plugins on a kick drum.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So it was one of those things that, less is more, But this time where I even put a plugin in for the texture that it does, like of the emulation, I just run it through and I'm not even doing anything to it.
Yeah, you just like the color that it gives.
Yeah, there's times that I have like a CLA 76, and maybe I'm not even compressing there. I'm compressing on the Omni channel or something, But just going through that already kind of gives it a different character, different tone. So a lot of times it's about the colors,
Yeah,
not necessarily the processing. Let's see if there are any other questions. I think we're reaching that point, perhaps.
Raul's down at the bottom with the even sub coverage.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Was that a comment? He would also comment on what you were talking about, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, to me, subs are the hardest thing to get to be even all the way across the floor from one side to the other. It's the hardest thing.
There's always pockets, though. I find that even with some of the best system engineers and everything, and you walk around, and as you take a few steps in certain directions, there's pockets.
Yeah.
I haven't seen, even on the best sounding shows, even with the best people and everything, I always find that, and I don't blame anybody. I just know that I feel that that's part of the technology that you just can't, or we haven't reached that point where it's perfect. What's that?
It's almost perfect.
It is. Yeah, it will have to, and I think the reason is because you're not necessarily in a controlled environment. It's different every day, right?
If you were in the same room every single day, then I think you could reach a point where you could get the sound to be identical everywhere in the room.
If you were in a controlled environment like that, like a venue that is stationary,
Yeah, but when you load in at 8 a.m. and you have to have a sound check by 3 and doors are at 6 and shows at 7:30 or 8.
Yeah.
You make the best of it, do the best you can. And that's where you go.
Yeah, that's one thing that is kind of cool when you do some of these residencies and things like that, and like in Vegas where they have a set, PA and the stage, everything, and that's always there. There's something to say about that. It kind of, makes it a little easier,
Yep.
It comes with other challenges, but for the most part, that consistency is there, So that's kind of cool, Something to consider for us. Maybe we'll do a
That's
residency.
something for Raul.
What's that?
That's something for Raul.
Yeah.
Raul's one of the finest systems techs that I've ever worked with.
We should take him with us wherever we go.
He dials that JBL rig in, man. Oh, so nice. Durango, remember Durango?
Hell yeah.
Big VTX 25.2 rig.
Man, that VTX stuff sounds really good.
Yeah.
It was definitely a game changer from some of the stuff from prior releases that it was like, once that came out, I was like, whoa,
Yep. And wait till you hear A12. That's a whole nother level.
Is that what we're using next, Brad?
Yes, when we go out in 2025.
That's what we use?
Right. That's what we'll use. A12.
I'm going to look like you. I'm going to have like all I'm like, everything's
I-
growing, man.
But I was gonna trim it, but now I think I might just let it go until we do a show.
I'm rebelling because I waited over a month to get my hair clippers. And they finally showed up, and they've been sitting there for 2-3 weeks now. And I'm like, well, I'm not cutting it. But that's why I'm wearing a hat, though, because if I let it out, it's like, woof. So none of that. But anyway, we're getting to the end of this, Bradley Dean. I think we had some great questions,
I think we did. I like the questions.
great participation.
You know, when people ask questions, it takes the pressure off of us to come up with topics to talk about.
That's true.
So,
Especially when you know, we're 5 minutes out and you're still having dinner and you're like, come on, dude. Everything's going to be okay.
I know. And then look at it. My mic cuts out.
And then your mic cuts out. I was like, oh, we have 2 engineers and one of the mics is cutting out.
That's okay.
But I don't know who to blame for that. I don't know if the internet's or Zoom or whatever. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out this streaming thing someday. I promise you.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe we should put this out there that, you know, we have the Sonic Ninjas Facebook thing. People can always leave comments as to what topics they would like us to cover.
That's true.
You know, give us some
Instagram-
ideas of things you'd like us
Instagram.
to talk about that we haven't talked about.
Yeah, if there's anything specific that you guys want to hear, hit us up. Instagram is the Sonic Ninjas, and on Facebook is Sonic Ninjas. We had to change it up because someone already took the name apparently, and they're trying to sell it to us.
Stay and just
So we're rebelling as well, saying no, we're not going to buy it off of you. So
not for $7,339.
no, you can keep your website. We don't want a website.
Because we're the Sonic Ninjas. Whoa!
Yeah, and they're like, no, we're not falling for that, my friend.
No, we're not.
Anyway, Bradley Dean, thank you again. Thanks for keeping me on my toes.
I promise that I won't take it down to the wire next week.
Whew. But also, thanks for everything, man, for sharing your knowledge as always. You're the man.
I think my wife told me to make sure that I engage you more. I hope I did this time.
I think so.
Okay.
Or was she like keeping you like, hey, you gotta
She said, you need to engage Eddie more.
see, but I'm trying not to talk too much because then I start talking and then I won't stop, and then I won't let you talk. Because that's what happens sometimes. But anyway. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, for joining us. You can watch us later, of course. And hit us up with any questions you may have, and we'll address them next time.
For sure.
Until then,
Until next time.
ciao.